An important and oft overlooked mission of our enemy is to defile our language. Language is incredibly important, and English is, or at least was, the most diverse and expressive of all languages, allowing speakers to convey all manner of meaning, and which in turn allowed them to perceive of the world in a more thoughtful, knowledgeable, and broad way. This gives the speakers the ability to more fully comprehend what is going around them. It allows them to be able to have vastly more categories to put something in, and to understand something more clearly. There is a deliberate attempt by our foes to reduce language as much as possible. It started with simple things like envy and jealousy. Jealousy is supposed to mean that you feel pride, devotion, protectiveness, loyalty, vigilance over something that belongs to you. God being jealous was a positive thing. It showed that he was loving and devoted and willing to fight for what belonged to him. Envy meant to covet, desire something that you cannot have, evoking feelings of bitterness and spite, as well as contempt for the rightful owner. Today, the two have been reduced to meaning more or less the same thing, with there notably not being a positive word to convey a desire for something that belongs to you. We see this play out on a much broader level today with words like fascist, alt-right, as well as socialism, tolerance, diversity, and equality. None of these words mean what they used to. They are all largely abstract terms that broadly mean something good or something bad. All nuance is lost, to the extent that many people today would equate the word intolerant with hate and tolerance with good. To tolerate something must mean that you initially find it distasteful, and should it be revealed that we were only tolerating gays in the original meaning of the word, as in we find it to be something negative but put up with it anyway, we would no doubt today be called intolerant, which just shows how degraded these words have become. With the masses largely thinking in abstract black and white terms, they have become very easy to control. It also works very well against the educated who would use the words properly. No longer can we refer to ourselves as jealous or intolerant in a positive way, for those words will be understood by prospective allies as meaning little more than petty and hateful. The degradation of our language is near certainly one of the primary objectives of the great enemy. We should make an effort to bring back the true meaning of these words. The common normal guy likes to believe itself enlightened and still virtue signals about their high regard for literature. We should abuse this by force-feeding them the true meaning of words and making them realize the often negative aspects of their approved newspeak, while showing the positive aspects of those terms used most often to demonize us. I've worked in higher ed since 2013. All of the claims that tertiary education is essentially dominated by Marxist ideology are entirely true, and, if anything, such propositions typically underestimate the degree to which academia has been almost totally subverted. While it may be anecdotal, in this thread I'm going to detail some of my personal experiences with respect to dealing with students and academic colleagues. The purpose is to provide some insider insight on the state of the art, as it were. Part 1. Writing my master's thesis on complex philosophical concepts as they pertain to literary theory and criticism. Close readings of Hegel, Marx, and the Frankfurt School of Critical Theory, Althusser, Lacan, Freud, Nietzsche, and so forth. During the same time, no fewer than 3 young, white women in my cohort are writing theses on Harry fucking Potter, including, but not limited to, Harry Potter as a metaphor for British cultural imperialism. The program, you will not be surprised to hear, was almost totally dominated by women, and their projects were as banal as they were characterized by painfully limited processes of thought, feminism, critical race theory, etc. Almost no serious scholarship taking place at all. Tepid, ideological research dominates. It's one big ideological circle jerk. Part 2. I start off a good, useful idiot, I freely admit. Want to apply my studies in literary and linguistic theory to demonstrate the nature of structural violence and discrimination in education and other fields. Start actually doing the data. FBI and DOJ stats, the work of Adrian Raine, Brain Scans of Criminals, Richard Wrangham, Primatologist, Pinker, and others. All the data totally undercuts almost every narrative I've been taught. Let the data speak for itself. Believe, foolishly, that higher ed is a space for the free exchange of ideas. Have to defend my thesis before a committee of 3 professors. 2 of the 3 are furious with my conclusions. Women are not discriminated against in the canon. Their lack of presence is better explained by differences in cognitive function between the genders than by sexism. Thesis defense is a total clusterfuck. One professor asks, and I quote, "If all these differences are the result of biology, what's even the point of studying them?" I respond, if cancer is in part the result of biology, what's the point of studying it? Department has already nominated me for Graduate of the Year, so they don't want me to fail during my defense. Also, one brave professor, a professor of German, LOL, gets my back. The others begrudgingly pass me. Go home and drink myself into oblivion. What have I dedicated my life to? Part 3. Get my shit together and decide to be the one voice of reason as an instructor, not technically a professor. Start teaching intro to rhetoric and survey courses in Lit. Most students, especially young men, are absolutely desperate for real, unashamed conversations about social issues. Department instructs us into rhetoric classes to use a text literally titled Globalism. During the spring semester, our department mandates the instruction of social issues related to race, gender, and sexuality, with an emphasis on diversity and inclusion. All right. Drop massive red pills on race and gender dynamics, you name it. Again, most young men fucking love it. It's super popular among them throughout the department. Response from young women is mixed. Ferguson happens and BLM emerges. What a time to be alive. Department is starting to become even more insane than usual. Part 4. A student complains to the department. I get called into a supervisor's office, told, and I'm not joking here, that I have to understand that I'm a straight white male, and so I need to be more sensitive when talking to historically underrepresented students about race. Tell them to go fuck themselves. I stand by everything I've said in class. Part 5. Not officially fired, but I'm not given any more classes again thereafter. Find work with another school. Community college this time. First day of orientation, I'm paired up with 2 new other instructors. One of them, a fat white bitch, asks me about my teaching assignment. I tell her. Her response? Oh, I hate that campus. How so? It's too white. Oh, thank God. Not off to a productive start. Assigned to a British literacy class. Sweet. Beowulf, Shakespeare, real gnarly stuff. Straight up include Evola essays from the Metaphysics of War as supplements to Beowulf. I don't give a fuck anymore, bitch. The boys fucking love it. Constantly have a group of young dudes who stay after class and want to talk about real shit. Most, not all, but most of the girls are less enthusiastic. Start to get complaints. Double down. Give a whole hour-long lecture on the Frankfurt School and the deleterious effects of Marxism on the social sciences. Say things like, the Western literary tradition is objectively the most glorious and sophisticated in world history. Women are underrepresented in the canon because they're less likely to be geniuses. We're not concerned in the class with diversity or inclusion or intersectionality. We're concerned with power and glory. Wake up one morning to get ready for class and check my email. Email from the dean. I'm being replaced in all my British literary sections. Being investigated for a clear Title IX charge. What the fuck? Did someone say I sexually assaulted them or something? Nope. 3 female students complained that they felt unsafe and unwelcome in class because of my lecture about women in the canon and my comments about the Frankfurt School, Keck. The memes write themselves. Reading your replies, fellows. I'll try to answer your questions after I finish. Thanks for the bumps. Part 6. Fuck your optics, I'm going in. Write a blistering 18-page response to the complaints, full of research about cognitive differences between men and women, information on the Frankfurt School, etc. Call out the dean and the department head. Scorched fucking earth. Total war. They drop the Title IX charge, but say they won't give me any more classes unless I submit to an improvement plan aimed at addressing my sensitivity towards marginalized students. Deja fucking vu. Refuse. Again, not officially fired, just not assigned any more classes. A handful of students even write emails in my defense. Beautiful little bastards. Didn't matter. Career in academia is over. Blacklisted, etc. Department puts all remaining instructors through sensitivity training. Classic. Sorry, I'm not sorry, and I'm not even really sorry for that. Start my own freelance consulting and tech writing company. COVID hits and everything shuts down. Fucked, but don't even care. I fought the good fight. Take some small measure of pride knowing that I actually fought back against this shit, even if it didn't affect much. Still get emails from students about what a boss I was. God bless them. I have tons of other stories about minor incidents too. I've met colleagues who unironically argue for pedophilia, blatantly failed students who wrote good essays but didn't adopt politically correct positions, they were pro-life, etc., professors sleeping with students, extorting lower-level instructors, paying lower-level instructors peanuts. I averaged about $18K a year during all this, no shit. All while preaching diversity and inclusion and tolerance. Moral of the story, the Academy absolutely is sophisticated brainwashing. It absolutely is run by Marxists, or at least fellow travelers, and they absolutely are indoctrinating our children. Bourgeoisie against the proletariat, oppressor and oppressed, God versus man, typical us versus them mentality, so filled all throughout Marxist thinking. Nietzsche, while a critic of the noble, also criticized the commoner equally. The few things that Marx and Nietzsche could probably agree on is the procession of property and the fact that hierarchical institutions came from society itself. While Marx thought that proletariat equals good and bourgeoisie equals bad, Nietzsche believed that we should go beyond the morality of good and evil, master and slave, left and right, because it is inherently restrictive. Nietzsche and Marx both disliked the exploitation of wealth by the few, but Nietzsche also had a love for Roman and Greek hierarchies. Marx wanted no hierarchies, and wished that humans would destroy wealth inequality only to the extent that it would not prevent ascending to something greater. Going beyond Übermensch and Untermensch and realizing an evil noble can contribute to the preservation of humanity just as much as good commoner can. The liberal, like a cartoon version of the leftist, makes a mockery out of the workers' causes, turning them into cheap, emotionally charged identity-based politics like tolerance and diversity. Diversity is our strength, they say, not realizing it is adversity and unity as workers that brings us together for the common cause. The ironic thing is that through identity politics, they divide and conquer themselves. In reality, their nihilistic outrage is used against them to destroy the egalitarian society around them. They want to destroy successful, hierarchical society when it doesn't work for them. Multiculturalism has made multiple truths that all conflict with each other, leading to no coherent absolute truth to power. Multiple truths that all compete and conflict with each other for supremacy, the society of post-truth and fake news, a society where rhetoric and emotions control the narrative. Nothing about the world we live in will ever make sense to you unless you understand you live under an occupation and are thus subject to the rules of the occupiers. If you do not start from there, you will search for multiple explanations and rationalizations that will lead you to ineffective ends. You are not an active participant in politics and public debate. You are its problem. Public debate is debating why you are the problem. Politics is about dealing with that problem. The opposition in debate simply offers an alternative path to your destruction. The end goal is never resisted. We cannot seek to influence the debate or enter politics. We can only hope to smash it. Your humiliation is the enemy's goal. To take a hit and fight on is honorable, and to take a beating every day is just sad. Humiliation robs you of your humanity, your will, your reason to fight on. Humiliation takes everything from you and debases it in front of all, and it robs you of being worthy of empathy. It has been used by every occupier in history. It is our natural primal understanding of defeat. The Ottoman practices of Koček was an ultimate example, similar to the concept of drag kids in modern America. Kočeks were a combination of dancers, clowns, and prostitutes. They were young non-Muslim boys taken from their parents and trained to be willful sexual objects and entertainers for the Turks. The goal was to have the occupied think, if we allow that to be done to our boys, what else can they do? The answer is anything. It is full spectrum domination of the conquered's mind. Your enemy doesn't want gay pride parades in your street, drag queens in your adverts, your son transgender, your parents dead from opioids, your meat replaced with bugs while your media laughs at you because they think it's for anyone's benefit. They want it because they know you don't want it, but can't stop them. They want to humiliate you, and there isn't any other reason. Whether the general public has noticed or not, and what we once knew as tradition, culture, and family is being transformed at a rapid pace. A massive dark cloud has been stretching itself over society for decades now. A type of noir, a new age noir, is upon us. Exaggerated mania in arrogance and elitism. The youth has fully accepted and internalized the ways of this massive dark cloud, and no one seems to know who they are anymore, outside of what popular culture provides them, as media culture has officially claimed the role of parent, while earthly parents are too busy neglecting their children or simply giving them up to society altogether. We are aware that this darkness is generational and has been in a state of growth since 1953, and today we see it for all its false light and intrigue. It's everywhere from the news, the movies, in your headphones, as well as in every scroll feed. A constructed identity of nihilism. A nihilistic culture has now presented itself as the norm today. Moral values have been bent into an L shape, crooked and passive-aggressive, vengeful and suppressing emotional rage mixed with drugs and promiscuity, which rears its ugly head labeled postmodernism. The postmodernist aims not only to redefine culture and tradition, but remove the entire concept of absolute truth, form, standards, and natural order altogether. The focus becomes arbitrary feelings, emotions, and subjectivity over objectivity and absolutes, community and collectivism over individualistic nation-states. Modern identity politics culture is a perfect example of this, since it is, at its core, a postmodern movement. Postmodernism is an intellectual reinterpretation of reality and epistemology. Truth is a myth, and reason is just a white male construct. Nihilism is a byproduct of the postmodernist worldview. Once you remove reason, meaning truth and morality, what else is there to believe in? Nothingness. The dissolution of traditional gender roles has left many individuals without guidance or purpose. Everything is now about instant gratification and showing everyone how your life is better than theirs. Think about it. Why do people take photos of their Starbucks drinks to post on their Insta stories? It's to show their followers that they have something desirable, a tasty, expensive drink. You should feel jealous of them because you don't have that drink. It gives them a quick hit of an emotional high, and they have gained the attention of their judging crowd. Yet, the high quickly fades. It's shallow and pointless. Next, they'll seek validation by posting a pic of their glass of wine later in the day. Same response, an emotional boost that quickly fades. It's a treadmill of dopamine hits with diminishing returns. What humans really need is homosocial group bonding. Females need groups of other women to bond with, share child-rearing duties, gossip with. Men need comrades, drinking buddies, brothers in arms, etc. This sense of belonging is rapidly fading as we lead increasingly atomized lives where our only validation comes from our purchases and shallow approval from others. That's why depression has rocketed. Capitalism thrives on short-term happiness and long-term unhappiness. I just started reading a book called Europe, A History by Norman Davies because I wanted to learn more about history before it gets rewritten by woke insanity. I chose this book simply because it had good reviews, but what's written in the introduction is pretty interesting. I'm going to write a TLDR, then I'll link the quotes from the book in the next posts. TLDR. The author talks about the postmodernist movement in the humanities and the deconstruction of the historical text in an attempt of destroying current knowledge. He talks about empathy, replacing facts in the teaching, and getting brainwashed by teachers who sensationalize rather than use sources. He talks about America's education and view of the West being driven by a multi-ethnic and multicultural society. He talks about Canadian college having freshmen chanting, "Hey ho, Western culture has to go." He mentions self-styled liberals who pursue an illiberal education, advocating against tolerance, freedom of thought, and cultural pluralism. The point of this is that the book was published in 1998. If you ever wonder where did all these nut jobs come from all of a sudden, you can see they had decades to make them. I'll now post the paragraphs from the book, although they are a pain to read. Some of them are not together. Postmodernism has been a pastime in recent years for all those who give precedence to the study of historians over the study of the past. It refers to a fashion which has followed in the steps of the two French gurus, Foucault and Derrida, and which has attacked both the accepted canon of historical knowledge and the principles of conventional methodology. In one line of approach, it has sought to demolish the value of documentary source materials in the way that literary deconstructionists have sought to dismantle the meanings of literary texts. Elsewhere, it has denounced the tyranny of facts and the authoritarian ideologies which are thought to lurk behind every body of information. At the extreme, it holds that all statements about past reality are coercive, and the purveyors of that coercion include all historians who argue for a commitment to human values. In the eyes of its critics, it has reduced history to the pleasure of the historian, and it has become an instrument for politicized radicals with an agenda of their own. In its contempt for prescribed data, it hints that knowing something is more dangerous than knowing nothing. Yet the phenomenon has raised more problems than it solves. Its enthusiasts can only be likened to those lugubrious academics who, instead of telling jokes, write learned tomes on the analysis of humor. One also wonders whether conventional liberal historiography can properly be defined as modernist, and whether postmodernist ought not to be reserved for those who are trying to strike a balance between the old and the new. It is all very well to deride the authority of all and sundry, but it only leads in the end to the deriding of Derrida. It is only a matter of time before the deconstructionists are deconstructed by their own techniques. We have survived the death of God and the death of man. We will surely survive the death of history and the death of postmodernism. The decline of factual history has been accompanied, especially in the classroom, with the rise of empathy, that is, of exercises designed to stimulate the historical imagination. Imagination is undoubtedly a vital ingredient of historical study, but empathetic exercises can only be justified if accompanied by a modicum of knowledge. In a world where fictional literature is also under threat as a respectable source of historical information, students are sometimes in danger of having nothing but their teachers' prejudices on which to build an awareness of the past. In the United States, the debate about Western civilization has centered on the changing requirements of American education. In recent years, it seems to have been driven by the needs of a multi-ethnic and multicultural society and by concerns for Americans whose origins lie neither in Europe nor in Europe's Christian-based culture. Generally speaking, it has not re-examined the picture of the European heritage as marketed by the likes of the Great Book scheme, and it has not been disturbed by demands from Americans of European descent for a fairer introduction to Europe. Where courses on Western civilization have been abandoned, they have been rejected for their alleged Eurocentrism, not for their limited vision of Europe. In very many cases, they have been replaced by courses on world history, which is judged better suited to America's contemporary understanding of the West. One well-publicized reaction against the shortcomings of Western civilization was to abolish it. Stanford University in California took the lead in 1989, instituting a Culture, Ideas, and Values course in place of the former foundation course in Western culture that had hitherto been compulsory for all fresh persons. According to reports, the university's authorities surrendered to chants of "Hey ho, Western culture has to go." The great paradox of contemporary American intellectual life, however, lies in the fact that the virtues most prized by the American version of Western civilization, tolerance, freedom of thought, cultural pluralism, now seem to be under attack from the very people who have benefited from them the most. Critics have observed the closing of the American mind. Self-styled liberals have been shown to be pursuing an illiberal education. 60 years on, the author of the Great Book scheme, still proud of the opening of the American mind, prefers to lambast his colleagues at the University of Chicago rather than to modify his prescription. The wrangles may be overreported, but America's historic drive towards a unified language and culture looks to be losing out to those lobbies and pressure groups who shout loudest. The Mafia is dead. The Chicago mob is dead. The Yakuza is dead. New York, Los Angeles, London, Tokyo, Paris, Miami, all are safe theme parks. Film is dead. Cinemas are all pathetic, homogeneous, and dying. Literature and poetry are dead. Public libraries are pathetic and redundant. Western governments have nothing to do except build a bit more infrastructure. There is nothing on the earth left to explore. Any crime you commit, or disciplinary trouble at work, gets you blacklisted for life from all interesting work. It is no longer possible to start your life over. Everything is connected. No more science is done by hobbyists. There are no more polymaths. There are no more grand philosophical insights. The internet is homogenized, centralized, and dead. 4chan is dying a slow, painful death. Exciting investment banking trading floors, loud, filled with working-class Italian Americans and Londoners, are silent and filled with tie wearers. Video game arcades are dead. Tinkering with computer parts is dead. Every operating system is a walled garden consumer cuck mush. Smartphones are a dumbed-down consumer interface for the world. TV is going through a short-lived revival, but will die again soon. Music is dead. Universities are sterile, corporate morality training centers. Idea of lone genius is dead. Crypto is dying. Biotech consists of nootropics for autists and rubbish for half-dead people. There are no foreigners. All sports except football are dying slowly and painfully. Football is sterile, and most teams are dying. The long tail of stupid fuckers is here to dumb everyone down. Japanese vidya is dead. Europe is dying. The UK is dead. The USA will die soon. Comics are dead. Radio is dead. Toys are dead. Cars are dead. Privacy is dead. Women are dead. Men are dead. Corporations rule the world.